I never thought my daughter would humiliate me like this in front of everyone. It was her birthday. She stood in her decorated living room, glass raised, smile painted on. "Honestly," she said, eyes flicking toward me, "the best gift would be if you stopped being a burden and disappeared from my life." Someone coughed. Another woman sipped her mimosa and looked away. I stood there, still holding the lemon cake I'd baked that morning. Her childhood favorite. I'd followed her little recipe card to the letter. Now my hands felt ice cold, like they didn't belong to me. She turned toward her friends, already moving on, as if the words weren't meant to cut, as if she hadn't just swung the axe in front of everyone. No one looked at me. No one said anything. I smiled, because I didn't know what else to do. A tight, tiny smile. She hadn't always been this cold. The change came gradually, small withdrawals of warmth, like someone dimming the lights one switch at a time. But if I had to mark the moment things truly started slipping, it was 6 months ago, when she asked for $25,000 to redo her kitchen. Not because something broke, not because she needed it, because she didn't want to dip into her bonus cushion and thought my retirement savings, the ones I worked for my whole life, were just waiting to be peeled off like bark from a tree. I told her no, gently, kindly. I told her I needed that money to keep myself afloat. She didn't yell. Lisa never yells. She just went quiet. And then colder. No more Sunday check-ins. I told myself she was busy, overwhelmed, that she'd warm back up eventually. But now, here I stood, in a room full of her friends, being offered up like a punchline, her words slicing through whatever was left of our connection. A burden. She said I was a burden. Like everything I did, the double shifts I worked to buy her prom dress, the nights I sat up with her during finals, the money I gave her when she left Mason's father, had somehow morphed into an invoice she was tired of seeing. She was done pretending, and maybe I was done hoping. I stayed frozen until the end of the toast, then forced my legs to move. I set the cake down on the table like it didn't matter, like it wasn't made from love, like it wasn't the last thing I'd ever cook for her, with that kind of care. Because in that moment, something broke in me too. Not loud, not messy, just final. I didn't belong in that house anymore. But they didn't get to throw me out like trash. I would leave on my own terms. At some point, Lisa disappeared down the hall with 2 of her friends, giggling like high school girls. I heard her say, "She just doesn't get how exhausting it is dealing with her. It's like everything has to be about her feelings." Then the door clicked shut. I sat on the edge of the couch, alone, while the guests chatted over mimosas and vegan quiche. A few of them smiled politely at me. One said, "Oh, are you Lisa's aunt?" I nearly laughed. "No," I said softly. "I'm her mother." She blinked. "Oh, I didn't realize. She never talks about you much." I nodded. Because what was the point? That tiny sentence landed like a hammer. She never talks about you much. After everything I did, everything I gave, the sacrifices, the nights walking hospital floors, with no sleep, because Lisa had a fever and no one else was around. The holidays, I skipped seeing friends so I could be where I was needed. Eventually, the guests trickled out. Hugs were exchanged. Lisa stood at the door in her designer wrap dress, thanking each person like a gracious hostess. Not once did she look at me. Not once did she pull me into a photo, or say, "This is my mom, she made the cake." Nothing. I stood slowly, every joint aching. My knees, my hip, the old car accident that never quite healed. I moved toward the door as she air-kissed someone goodbye. "Oh," she said, spotting me. "You're still here?" I blinked. "I was just about to head home," I said. Calm, steady. "Oh, okay. Well, thanks for coming," she said, like I was some distant relative from another town, not the woman who raised her. She didn't hug me. I walked out into the late afternoon sun, my coat too light for the sudden chill. No one offered to walk me to my car. Of course there wasn't one. I'd walked here, 1.5 miles, because Lisa said her driveway was full and I'd understand. I did. I understood everything now. And inside me, a quiet decision was forming. The kind that takes root deep, where rage and grief meet and hold hands. That night, I couldn't sleep. The silence in my house pressed in, thick and heavy, like wet wool against my chest. The kind that makes you feel like you're being watched by the ghosts of your own mistakes. I sat at the kitchen table with a lukewarm cup of tea, the one chipped mug I always use. I didn't turn on the overhead light, just the little lamp under the cabinet, casting soft yellow onto the old tablecloth. I hadn't changed in weeks. Something in me wanted to reach backward, to some version of the past that still made sense. So I pulled the old photo album from the hutch, the green one, leather-bound, with the broken spine and frayed edges from years of overuse. The one I swore I'd digitize someday, but never had the heart to. First page. Lisa, age 4, missing her 2 front teeth, grinning with strawberry jam on her chin. She's holding my hand at the zoo, wearing the overalls her dad picked out. My hair was darker then, my body stronger. Flip. Lisa on my lap, age 7, right after her father's funeral. Her eyes swollen from crying, her little hand gripping my sleeve like she might float away if she let go. I remember that day. I couldn't cry in front of her. I waited until she was asleep and then broke in the laundry room, muffling sobs into a pile of clean towels. We were alone, just the 2 of us, and I promised her, whispered it into her hair as she slept, that I'd never let anything bad happen to her again. Flip. Prom night. She's beaming, arms around her date, but I remember the moment before that photo. She was upset because her shoes didn't match her dress, and she thought she looked dumb. I went back inside, pulled out a pair of mine, silver, 2 sizes too big, and said, "Well, then I guess I'll look dumb too, and we'll be a pair." I closed the book gently. My hands were shaking, not from age or pain, but from the weight of what I finally had to admit. She doesn't love me. Not really. Not in a way that honors, or includes, or respects. She loves what I provide, what I've built, what she can take. That's not love. That's consumption. I sat in the quiet, the tea long gone cold, and breathed through the ache in my chest. This wasn't sadness anymore. It was recognition. The little girl in those pictures? She's gone. And the woman standing in her place? She'll soon learn that I may be old, but I am not blind. The attic hadn't been opened in months, maybe a year, but something gnawed at me the next morning. A sharp, restless tug in my gut that wouldn't let me be still. I kept thinking about that line Lisa said during her birthday toast. If you disappeared from my life, as if I were already halfway gone. And the way she'd looked past me after, like I was a coat she didn't want to hang on to anymore. So I went upstairs, not to cry, not to mope. I went looking for the only thing I still had control over, my papers, my name, my future. The air was stale and dry up there, the kind that made your throat itch. I pulled the string on the single bulb, and the light blinked on like it too, was waking from something. Boxes lined the shelves, Cliff's old files, the folder of his army paperwork, still sealed. A bin labeled mortgage, paid off 2006, written in my own hand. And then, near the corner, will and insurance. I reached for it carefully. My fingers were stiff. My knees hated the crouch, but I managed. I sat cross-legged on the old rug I'd laid down years ago for insulation. It still smelled like cedar. I opened the folder, scanning the pages. My will, the one I drew up after Cliff died. Lisa's name was there, listed as power of attorney, medical proxy, beneficiary of the house. I'd written it that way to make things easier. That's what people say, isn't it? Just make it simple for the family. But tucked in between the will and the insurance forms was a letter I didn't remember placing there. It had my name on it. Postmarked 6 weeks ago. From the bank. I opened it. And the cold in that attic wasn't from the temperature anymore. Confirmation of address change for account ending in -4,902. What? I read it again. Then again. New primary mailing address, 312 Tall Pine Circle. That was Lisa's address. Her condo across town. I hadn't requested that. I hadn't signed anything. My hands started to tremble. Not from weakness, from fury. She'd rerouted my financial mail. Without telling me. Without asking. My retirement account. The one Cliff and I built for 40 years. the cushion I depended on to stay afloat. It was now linked to her home. I dug deeper in the file box, searching for the envelope. The original mailing one. It had been opened already, slit clean with a letter opener, not ripped like I usually do. Someone had seen this before me. Had she been in here? I gripped the edges of the file, trying to calm the whirlwind in my chest. She must have gone through these when I was in rehab last spring. After my fall, I'd asked her to bring me my insurance papers. I hadn't been able to climb stairs for weeks. I told her where the files were. I'd trusted her. She'd used that trust like a crowbar. I sat back against the attic wall, my breath shallow and sharp. This wasn't just bitterness anymore. This was theft, covert, calculated, dressed in concern. And suddenly, her coldness last night made perfect sense. Her need for me to disappear. If I were out of the picture, there'd be no more questions, no more oversight, just free access. My stomach turned. She didn't just want space. She wanted my life, the parts of it that still had value. And I'd handed her the keys, thinking I was being cared for. I stood up slowly, legs stiff and trembling. But I stood. She wanted me gone? Let's see how she handles me awake. 2 days later, I was in the garden again. The one thing that still calmed me. The roses were finally blooming after the late frost. I was pruning them back. Slow work for stiff fingers, but familiar. The soil didn't lie to me, didn't pretend to care. It was early afternoon. Birds chirped high above. The air smelled faintly of mulch and coffee grounds. I'd just emptied my compost tin. That's when I heard it. Footsteps. I leaned slightly, just enough to peer through the lattice of my trellis. Lisa. She didn't knock. She didn't call. She walked, straight up to my mailbox, as casually as if it were her own. The lid squeaked open. Her hand slipped inside. She paused, looked left, then right. Didn't see me crouched between the blush roses and the old birdbath Cliff made years ago. She pulled out 3 envelopes. I could see the blue trim of a bank logo from where I stood. She didn't even open them right there. She tucked them under her arm like grocery flyers, turned on her heel, and walked back to her car. A sleek silver SUV. She said she couldn't afford when I asked her about my $12,000 last year. She never saw me. I didn't move until the car turned the corner. Then I stood, slowly. My knees cracked like old floorboards. So that's how she's been doing it. No hacking. No break-ins. Just taking mail, taking information, taking me apart, piece by piece, in ways too quiet for anyone to notice, unless you were looking. But now I was looking, wide-eyed and alert. I thought about the envelope from the attic again, the clean cut, the careful resealing. She'd gone through my records like it was her right. And now, watching her slip my mail under her arm without blinking, I knew it in my bones. Lisa didn't think she was stealing. She thought she was entitled. She'd convinced herself I wouldn't notice, that I was slow, drowsy, unaware, that because I needed help walking stairs after surgery, I'd lost the right to manage my own life. I sat down on the garden bench, the one Cliff and I used to drink tea on every Sunday. The birds fluttered in the feeder above. The light filtered through the trees, and everything felt too soft for the rage growing inside me. Not just because she was lying, but because I had let it go on this long. I'd handed over account access when she said she wanted to streamline things. I let her pick up my prescriptions. I gave her my banking login. I still remember that afternoon, sitting on the couch while she said, "Mom, you shouldn't have to worry about all this. Let me help." And I believed her. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat at the dining table in my nightgown and robe, the house so quiet I could hear the tick of the old wall clock in the hallway. The one Cliff bought at a flea market, convinced he could fix the chime. He never did. I used to hate the sound. Tonight it felt like company. I set out a yellow notepad, the kind I used to keep grocery lists on, and I wrote in slow, shaky handwriting, "Step 1, call the bank." Because I needed answers. In my own voice, from my own mouth. No more second-hand updates. No more trusting Lisa's emails, Lisa's passwords, Lisa's version of what's simpler. Step 2. Check all account activity. Savings, retirement, Medicare, utilities, everything. Because if she's taken mail, if she's changed addresses, if she has access, I can't assume anything anymore. Step 3. Call Ed. I paused after writing that one. Just stared at the name. Ed Martin. My late husband's old friend from the VA, now retired. But still sharp, still decent, still a licensed attorney. We haven't spoken in a year, maybe more. But Ed always said, Margaret, if you ever need a second pair of eyes on anything legal, you call me. I don't care if it's a fence dispute or a funeral home contract. Well, Ed, I have something bigger now. Step 4. Change passwords. Freeze credit. Request statements paper mail only. I underlined paper mail only 3 times. My hand trembled a little. Whether from anger or age, I couldn't tell. But I kept writing. Step 5. Look up property title. I didn't want to, but I had to. Because something about Lisa's confidence, her smirk when she talked about downsizing me, had felt too bold, too rehearsed. I needed to know if she'd gone even further than I feared. Because if she touched the deed, if she moved my house into her name. I pressed the pen hard enough to leave an imprint in the tablecloth beneath. That's when I realized I was crying. Not sobbing, not wailing. Just quiet, steady tears down my cheeks as my body caught up with my brain. Because it was real now. Not just suspicion. Not just a daughter with a bad temper. This was theft, betrayal. A dismantling of my life, one document at a time. And I had helped her do it. That was the worst part. I let her. Because I believed in family. Because I thought love meant trust. Because I wanted to believe she saw me as her mother. Not just an obstacle to move around. But there's a line between trust and surrender. And I crossed it without knowing. The next morning, I put on real clothes. Slacks. A blouse. The blue cardigan Cliff always said made my eyes look calm. I didn't want to look like someone you could brush off. I wanted to look like someone who kept receipts. The local branch wasn't far. Just a 10-minute bus ride. I didn't want to ask Lisa for a ride. I didn't want her knowing where I was going. When I walked in, the lobby smelled like cold air conditioning and fake leather. A young man in a tie too tight greeted me, but I asked for the branch manager. Is there a problem with your account, ma'am? I'll wait, I said. The manager, a woman named Rachel with kind eyes, came out a few minutes later. She looked barely 30, but she shook my hand firmly. I need to review the last 9 months of activity on my savings and retirement accounts, I said. In person, no email, no online portal. Rachel led me to her office. I handed her my ID, my notepad, and the printed letter, with the address change. I watched her expression carefully as she read. Did you authorize this address change, Mrs. Winters? No. Her lips pressed into a thin line. She pulled up the account history. Her eyes scanned the screen. Then she turned the monitor slightly so I could see too. 9 months of quiet withdrawals. $1,200 here. $2,500 there. Each one marked online transfer. Always to the same linked checking account. Did you ever enroll in online banking? Rachel asked gently. No, I don't even know how. That was the truth. Lisa had always handled that. Insisted it was easier. Less paper clutter, she'd said. Rachel clicked on the linked account profile. The phone number tied to it wasn't mine. But I knew it. Lisa's cell. The one she'd had since college. I used to pay the bill until she got her first real job. I bought that phone. My mouth went dry. Can you show me when online access was set up? I asked. Rachel clicked again. It was activated 10 months ago. Through a mobile device. She paused. Using the power of attorney on file. I froze. Lisa had the POA. I gave it to her after my hip surgery last year, just in case something happened during the anesthesia. I never revoked it, I whispered. Rachel turned toward me, serious now. I strongly recommend we begin a fraud report, she said. And you may want to consider freezing these accounts until the situation is formally reviewed. I nodded, but my whole body felt heavy, like grief had shifted into my bones. 10 months. 10 months she'd been siphoning from my future. "Is there anything else you'd like to check?" Rachel asked. "Yes," I said. "Mortgage status on my house," Rachel typed. Then blinked. "Your home was listed as a non-primary residence in our system," she said slowly, "and the title address does not match your current one." I leaned in. "Where does it say I live?" She hesitated, then showed me the screen. 312 Tall Pine Circle. Lisa's condo. "Would you like to file a dispute?" I stared at the monitor. What Lisa had done wasn't just financial overreach. It wasn't a little borrowing. It was rewriting the paperwork of my life. "Yes," I said. My voice was steady now. I felt it in my spine. "File everything." Rachel nodded. "We'll need some forms and identification. I can walk you through all of it." I left the bank with a folder an inch thick and a fire in my chest I hadn't felt in years. It wasn't just about money anymore. It was about identity, dignity. Lisa wanted to erase me. She'd picked the wrong woman. I didn't go home to cry. I went home to dig. It was late afternoon by the time I got back, the sun throwing sharp lines across my hallway floor. I kicked off my shoes, tossed my purse on the chair, and walked straight to the little room Cliff always called my nest, the home office. The place where I kept everything. Bills, letters, the old desktop computer we never upgraded, because I didn't trust the cloud. The printer was still plugged in. So was the filing cabinet. And if Lisa had been bold enough to tamper with my bank, I had to see how far her audacity reached. I started pulling files. Insurance statements, tax records, property assessments, anything with my name on it. And then I saw it, tucked inside a plastic sleeve with some old water bills. A printed listing. "Charming 2BR Craftsman, available for immediate lease." It was my house. My full address, right there. A description she clearly wrote. "Well-maintained vintage charm with updated appliances. Long-time owner recently moved. Ideal for short-term corporate housing." Long-time owner recently moved. I sat down. On the back, there were notes. Fake lease terms. Monthly rent, $2,800. Deposit, $2,800. Tenant, J. Reese. The name was familiar. Cliff had a fishing buddy named James Reese who died 4 years ago. She was using dead people. She'd fabricated lease agreements. And it wasn't just one. I found 2 more. All printed. All signed. With forged scribbles that only vaguely resembled my signature. One even had my initials on the bottom corner. It made my stomach turn. She was using my home, my paid-off, 40-year sanctuary, as a prop for some kind of income scheme, likely to boost her own credit. Or, worse, for that condo she'd bought. The one I helped fund with just a little loan, which she never repaid. I thought about the way she'd smirked during her toast on my birthday. Honestly, the best gift would be if you disappeared. And then 2 weeks later, she's filing documents pretending I already had. I opened my desk drawer, pulled out the calculator, ran the numbers from the lease terms she forged. If she'd submitted these to a bank or broker, faked having tenants, faked income, she was defrauding not just me, but a lender. This wasn't just a personal betrayal anymore. It was a criminal one. I sat there, the room spinning, and then I heard it, the gentle ding of my inbox. I turned on the desktop. One new message. From Lisa M. Realty Services. My breath hitched. She had used my internet bill, my name, my address, my life. She'd listed herself as a managing agent of the home. My home. She didn't ask. She didn't warn me. She just took it, like I was already gone. That's what shook me most. She wasn't just preparing to push me out. She was building a paper trail that said I never existed in this house to begin with. I sat still for a long time. The walls around me felt suddenly unfamiliar, like I'd stepped into a stranger's home. And yet, everything in this room was mine. Cliff's war medals, the framed photo of Lisa at her high school graduation, the tiny drawer filled with birthday cards she wrote me when she was 7 and still loved me in crayon. She wanted to own the shell, but she would never understand the soul of this place. I shut the drawer softly. Then I stood. She had taken my name, my money, Now, she was trying to steal my legacy. But I wasn't the one being erased. She was. Because I was gathering everything now. Documents, signatures, timelines, names. And when this all came crashing down, she'd be the one without a roof. I needed air. Not the kind that drifts through cracked windows. I needed open space. No walls, no locks, no reminders of her. So I went to the lake. There's a bench I always liked, tucked between two old birch trees. Cliff and I used to come here on Sundays, coffee in hand, ducks waddling near our feet. That bench saw a lot of good years. Now it was going to witness something else. I sat down, the wood warm from the afternoon sun. The lake was quiet, glassy. Not a single ripple except for a bird skimming low, wings just touching the surface. I used to believe stillness meant peace. Now I understood. Sometimes it's just the pause before everything breaks. I pulled the envelope from my purse. Inside were copies of the fake leases, the bank withdrawal records, the confirmation letter with Lisa's condo listed as my official address, and the final page, the account summary. $47,320. That's what she drained. $47,320. All from my savings, my retirement cushion, my safety net. Piece by piece, over 10 months, always small enough not to raise alarms, unless you were paying attention. She counted on me not paying attention. She thought I was too old, too tired, too trusting, and maybe I was, but I wasn't anymore. I folded the papers back into the envelope. My fingers moved carefully, like I was handling something poisonous, because that's what this was. Not just a money problem. It was the moment I had to accept that love can rot. Quietly. From the inside. I used to tell myself Lisa was just stressed, overwhelmed, caught up in her new life, her condo, her social circle, her son. I used to explain away the coldness. She's tired. She doesn't mean it. She'll come back to herself. But now I knew the truth. She didn't lose herself. She shed me. The kindness I thought was buried under stress, it was long gone. What's left now is calculation. And entitlement. She didn't just want space. She wanted to replace me. I stared out at the lake, the trees casting long shadows over the surface. A duck paddled by, quacking once like it was breaking the silence for both of us. I should have been sobbing, but there were no tears left, just silence, heavy, sacred. I thought about calling her, saying why, saying how could you, saying I loved you more than I loved myself. But she wouldn't hear it, not because she couldn't, because she didn't care to. And somewhere between that fake lease and that stolen dollar, she made a decision. She believed I was disposable. So I made mine. I wasn't going to beg. I wasn't going to scream. I was going to bury her in facts, in signatures, in paper trails, in cold, hard proof that I am not some doddering old woman with blurry memory and soft hands. I am Margaret Winters. I worked 2 jobs for 30 years. I built that house from nothing but savings and stubbornness. And I am done being taken. The next day, I made soup. Chicken and barley. Her favorite when she was little. Back then, she called it magic dinner. Back when I used to fix things with a bowl and a kiss on the forehead. I didn't make it out of nostalgia. I made it because I needed an excuse. To get into her condo. To see her eyes up close. To stand inside the walls she paid for with pieces of me. When I rang the bell, she didn't answer at first. Then the buzzer buzzed and the door clicked open. No hello. I walked in anyway. The entryway smelled like some kind of boutique candle. Citrus and pride. Lisa? I called softly. She didn't answer, but I heard her, in the other room, pacing, phone to her ear. Her voice was sharp, tight. I do have rental income, she snapped. It's consistent. I've sent the documents. Look, those leases were signed months ago. I shouldn't be penalized because underwriting wants to play games. I stopped just before the corner. She hadn't seen me yet. I stood still, holding the Tupperware warm in my hands. She sighed loudly into the phone. No, it's my mother's property, but she moved out, okay? She's not coming back. It's not like she needs it. I blinked. Not coming back. She'd said it like I was already dead, like I'd vanished, Like I wasn't still living in that same house, sleeping in that same bed, with Cliff's photo on the nightstand, and my name still carved into the mailbox. I stepped forward. Lisa jumped when she saw me. "Mom," she said, breath catching, eyes wide. She lowered her phone fast. "I didn't know you were. What are you doing here?" I held up the container. "Brought soup," I said. Calm, easy. My heart was pounding, but my voice wasn't. She blinked. "Oh," she said, too quickly. "That's nice." She looked nervous, like I'd walked in on something. "I didn't mean to interrupt," I said, stepping into the kitchen. "You seemed busy." She set her phone face down on the counter. "It's nothing. Just dealing with mortgage stuff." She offered no detail. She never did, unless she was boasting. I set the soup down gently. "That your lender on the phone?" She hesitated. "Yeah, just trying to finalize a refinance. It's boring." I let that sit for a moment, then looked around the room. Sleek counters, stainless appliances, one of those fake fruit bowls on the table, all of it paid for, with pieces of me. "You told them you had tenants?" She blinked fast. "What?" "I overheard," I said, looking straight into her eyes. "You said the leases were signed months ago." Her mouth opened, then closed. I smiled, but not kindly. "You mean the leases you forged?" Her face drained of color. "You don't know what you're talking about." I stepped closer. "I do. I've seen them. Printed, signed, filed under your name, using my property." "Mom, it's not. You used a dead man's name." Her breath caught. I kept my tone steady, controlled. The way I used to speak to patients before delivering bad news. Measured, unapologetic. "I went to the bank," I continued. "I know about the withdrawals, the address change, the digital transfers tied to your phone." Her lips trembled. "Mom, please. You don't understand. I was trying to fix your mess." She looked away. "You used me to prop up your mortgage, faked income, stole savings, lied to lenders." Her voice finally cracked. "I needed help." "No," I said, calm as ever. "You needed money. Help is what you ask for. Theft is what you did." I stepped back. "Enjoy the soup," I added. "It'll be your last gift from me." She didn't say a word as I walked out, but I heard her breath catch behind me. And that was enough. She knew. She knew I was done being quiet. And she was about to learn exactly what happens when the woman you underestimated stops being useful and starts being furious. Ed opened the door with a tired smile and a manila folder already in hand. "I did some digging," he said before I even stepped over the threshold. "Figured we'd have a lot to cover." He led me to his kitchen, cleared a place at the table. Lemon bars sat untouched beside a cup of coffee that had probably gone cold waiting for me. I didn't sit right away. I pulled the envelope from my purse and laid it out. Leases, bank letters, copies of the account activity, a printed screenshot of Lisa's realtor listing, showing my house as a rental. Ed's brow furrowed deeper with every page. "She used a dead man's name here," he muttered. "James Reese passed in 19. This lease is dated last spring." "She forged signatures," I said, "including mine." He nodded, jaw tightening. "She told the bank I'd moved out, that I was gone." My voice shook on that one. The only time it did. Ed didn't look up. He was already pulling out his reading glasses. "Let me guess," he said. "She still has power of attorney?" "Yes." "Did you revoke it?" "Not yet." He looked at me over the rims of his glasses. "Then that's step one." He flipped to the bank letters. "She rerouted account mail to her own address. That's mail fraud. If she initiated online banking access using that POA, we can argue abuse of authority, especially with the digital withdrawals and the fact that the linked phone number is hers." He scribbled a few notes. "She also listed herself as trustee on a property trust," I said quietly. That got his full attention. "You have a property trust?" "No, but she created one. I found the paperwork. All faked. The trust lists her as trustee and claims I transferred title to her." Ed let out a breath. "Not quite a curse. Not quite a prayer. That's a felony, Margaret." I nodded. I already knew. She forged a legal document. he said, flipping through the pages again. Filed it. Passed it off as legitimate to lenders. That's fraud. Real estate fraud. Maybe identity theft, if we can prove she signed on your behalf. He closed the folder. She thought I wouldn't catch it, I said. Ed gave a short, bitter laugh. She thought you'd die before you got smart, I flinched, then nodded. Exactly. He poured 2 cups of fresh coffee, pushed one toward me. We revoke POA, he said. Immediately. I'll draft the revocation and file it with the county and her broker. Then we freeze the title. File a formal objection to the trust. That stops her from using the house as collateral or selling it. What about the money she took? I asked. If you're ready to press charges, we contact the bank's fraud division and submit everything. They'll freeze the accounts and start their own investigation. He leaned forward, hands folded. But you have to be sure, Margaret. Once this starts, there's no taking it back. She'll know you went to war. I'm sure, I said. And I was. I didn't just want my money back. I wanted the truth on paper. I wanted Lisa to be forced to look at herself, not as a daughter, not as a victim of stress, but as what she'd become. A thief in expensive heels, a liar in my kitchen, a woman who gambled my dignity for a better interest rate. She thought I'd never fight, I said. Ed smiled faintly. Then let's teach her different. He reached for a pen, and I signed the first document that put my life back into my name. We didn't waste time. The next evening, Ed came to my house, briefcase in one hand, lemon bars in the other, like it was just a friendly visit between old friends. But what we spread across my dining table wasn't dessert. It was paperwork, layers and layers of defense, revocation of power of attorney, signed and notarized, a freeze order on the property title, filed through the assessor's office, notices to the bank, to Lisa's brokerage firm, and to the county records department. Everything she'd been using to impersonate control? Cut off. One document at a time. This will trigger alerts, Ed said. Once her access is revoked, the systems will flag every login attempt. She'll panic. Good, I said. We worked by candlelight after the power flickered once or twice. A storm was passing through, light rain tapping the windows. The house felt old, but alive again, like it was listening. I hadn't sat at that table like this in years, with purpose. Cliff and I used to go over bills together here, budget out our lives on yellow pads and calculator tape. Now I was budgeting something else entirely. Justice. I've also got the fraud packet prepped for the bank, Ed said, tapping the thickest folder. You'll submit it tomorrow, in person. Bring ID. Bring everything you've got. Once they open a formal case, they'll contact Lisa directly. Freeze her access. She won't see it coming. I nodded, and then I took a deep breath. I want to set a trap, I said. Ed raised an eyebrow. Not illegal, I added, just tempting. He waited. I want her to think I'm leaving town. That I've given up. I want to see what she does when she thinks I'm out of the way again. Ed leaned back in his chair, rubbing his chin. That'll work. People like her only get bold when they think you're not watching. We drafted a fake itinerary, a week-long trip to a spa retreat downstate. I printed it on nice paper, wrote a note in Lisa's tone. Thought you'd like a little break. Booked you something peaceful. We'll check on the house while you're gone. I'd leave it out, in plain sight, let her find it. And then I'd be right here, watching. We coordinated with the fraud division to monitor my account activity. If she logged in, moved funds, checked balances, I'd get an alert. And so would Ed. She'll think I'm gone, I said. And she'll get sloppy, Ed finished. It was nearly midnight when we finished. The rain had stopped. The house was quiet again. Safe, for the moment. I walked Ed to the door. She'll be angry, I said quietly. When she realizes it's over. She'll try to guilt you, he said. Cry. Accuse. Play the victim. I nodded. I'd already seen shades of it before. The dramatic sighs. I'm just under so much pressure. The long pauses, waiting for me to apologize for accusing her of anything at all. But this time, I wasn't backing down. I'm not doing this out of spite, I said. I know, Ed replied. You're doing it because you finally remembered your worth. He patted my arm and walked down the steps. The porch light flickered once and held. I stood there for a while, barefoot on the welcome mat, not waiting for anything, just feeling the house beneath me. The floorboards Cliff laid himself. The trim I painted after Lisa's first school play. The dining table where I taught her to balance a checkbook, back when she still wanted to learn from me. She was going to learn from me again. But this time, the lesson would cost her everything. The next 3 days, I kept everything perfectly normal. Posted a fake note on the fridge with my spa trip itinerary. Left a packed duffel by the door. Even dropped a voicemail on her line, just confirming brunch Sunday before I head out of town. I cooked early that morning. Spinach quiche, the one she always said made me look like someone on the Food Network. I even set the table in her condo with cloth napkins and orange juice in little glasses. When she opened the door, she looked surprised. Flushed, maybe. Not from makeup. From nerves. "You look nice," she said. "So do you," I said with a warm smile. "It's good to see you." We sat, I served the food. She picked at hers, but her eyes kept darting to the door. "You're really leaving town for a week?" she asked. "Mm-hmm." I figured it was time. Recharge a little. "Well, let me know if you want me to check on the house," she said quickly. "Or water the plants?" I smiled and nodded. "Of course." I left instructions on the table. She relaxed a little after that. Took a bigger bite of quiche. We talked about nothing for a while. Safe topics. Weather. Grocery prices. The usual performance. Then, after coffee, I reached into my purse and pulled out a small gift bag. The kind you'd use for jewelry. Her eyebrows rose. "What's this?" "Just a little something to go over," I said gently. "No rush. We can read it together." She opened the bag slowly. Pulled out the first document. Her face shifted instantly. It wasn't jewelry. It was a certified letter revoking her power of attorney. Right beneath it, a notarized freeze order on the house title. And beneath that, the full fraud complaint, printed and labeled. "What is this?" she asked, voice suddenly sharp. I took a long sip of my coffee. "It's a new chapter," I said. "One where you don't get to lie anymore." Her hands trembled as she flipped through the documents. "You can't do this," she whispered. "I already did. You went behind my back? You went behind mine first, when you changed addresses, forged leases, stole $47,000 from my account." Her mouth opened, but no sound came. I leaned forward slightly. "Do you want to see the screenshots from the bank? They traced every withdrawal, every login from your phone." "This is insane," she said, voice rising. "No," I said calmly. "What's insane is thinking you could steal from me, and I'd never notice. What's insane is forging legal trust documents and expecting me to keep baking lemon cakes like nothing happened." She stood suddenly. "I needed help. You needed control," I said, my voice like stone. "But that ends today." She stared at me, and in that moment, it hit her. Not just that I had caught her, but that I was capable of catching her. That I wasn't the soft, sleepy mother she thought she could pocket like spare change. I stood too, slow and steady. "You'll be getting a call from the fraud unit this week. And your mortgage lender. You used my house to qualify for your loan. I've already submitted the affidavits." "You're ruining my life," she hissed. "No," I said. "You did that all by yourself." And with that, I picked up my purse, adjusted my brooch, and walked toward the door. I didn't slam it. I didn't look back. The performance was over, and the truth had finally taken the stage. She followed me toward the door. "Wait," she said. "You can't just drop this and walk away." I turned slowly, looked at her. Really looked. The flushed cheeks, the trembling jaw, the fear behind the fury. Oh, she knew. And that terrified her more than anything. "You should sit down," I said quietly. "You're going to need to." She stood frozen in place, so I kept going. "The affidavits include evidence from the bank, screenshots of the withdrawals, the name on the digital account tied to your phone." Her lips parted, but no words came. "I know you changed my mailing address. I know you listed my home as a rental. I know about the fake leases. James Reese was dead, Lisa. Did you think I wouldn't remember who my husband's friends were?" She blinked hard. Her voice cracked. It wasn't supposed to go this far. Then you should have stopped before you opened my mailbox, I snapped. My voice was sharp now. Controlled, but sharp. The mask was off. Every time you thought I was sleeping or too confused, I was watching, recording, documenting. I even saw you take mail from my front yard while I was in the garden. That's not what you think. Don't, I said, holding up my hand. You're not here to rewrite the narrative anymore. That part's done. She crossed her arms, trying to steady herself. I panicked. Things got tight, and I thought you'd be okay. You thought I'd be okay while you siphoned $47,000 from my retirement? You don't even use that money. I wasn't using it, I said, because I thought I could trust you. She looked away. I stepped closer. You wanted me gone, I said, voice low. You said it, right there on my birthday. In front of everyone. The best gift would be if you disappeared. Well, I heard you. Her eyes filled with tears. Mom, I was joking. It wasn't a joke, I said. It was the only honest thing you've said in months. I pulled out the final envelope from my purse and handed it to her. She looked at it like it might burn her. What's this? The property affidavit I filed with the title office, I said. You listed yourself as trustee of a fake trust. That's real estate fraud. You tried to move the deed out from under me. It's all documented. She shook her head slowly. No. You'll have to explain it, I said. To the bank, to your mortgage lender, to the fraud unit, maybe to a judge. Her hands trembled. I didn't mean. But you did it, I said, stepping back. And that matters more. For a long moment, we stood there in silence. She looked smaller than I've ever seen her. Not younger. Just hollow. Like someone who'd finally seen herself in the mirror. And didn't like what stared back. You can't press charges, she whispered. You're my mother. I can, I said. I haven't decided if I will. But I'll lose everything. So did I said. You just did it quietly. $1, one signature, one lie at a time. Tears rolled down her cheeks now. I didn't flinch. You miss me now that I said no, I added. But you didn't miss me when you were using me. She sank down into the kitchen chair, said nothing. I'll expect no more contact, I said. Unless it's through a lawyer. And don't even think about setting foot on my property. I've changed the locks. You're not welcome there anymore. Still, she said nothing. I turned toward the door. Mom? She called out weakly behind me. I stopped. What do I do now? I looked back at her, the girl I raised, the woman I didn't recognize. Figure out who you are, I said, without stealing it from me. Then I left. For the last time. 3 days later, the letter arrived from the bank. Account access terminated. Assets frozen pending investigation. Lisa's name wasn't on a single account anymore. Not legally, not digitally, not even as a beneficiary. I sat at my dining room table holding the paper with steady hands. The same table where she used to sit and do her homework. The same chair where she once asked me how credit worked. I looked around my house. My house. Still mine. Still standing. Still filled with my life. The title freeze held. The county accepted my affidavit and flagged the fraudulent trust. Ed said no one could touch it now. And Lisa? She'd gone quiet. Almost. First came the voicemails. The soft, pitiful tone. Mom, I'm sorry. I didn't mean for it to blow up like this. I was desperate. Please just call me back. It's all being taken out of context. I didn't mean to hurt you. Then the texts started. Monday. They're pulling my mortgage, Mom. You don't understand what that means. Tuesday. I could lose the condo. Please, I'm begging you. Just tell them it was a misunderstanding. Wednesday. Do you even care what happens to me? To Mason? That last one made my jaw tighten. She always used Mason like a shield. My grandson. The one she dangled when she wanted money. When she wanted forgiveness. I didn't reply. Because I was done being baited. She had spent over a year treating me like a ghost with a checkbook, draining my savings, falsifying documents, lying to my face while she smiled over coffee. Now she was feeling what it meant to lose access. Ed kept me updated. The mortgage application was formally revoked. The bank investigation had moved from inquiry to active case. Her brokerage firm placed her on unpaid leave, pending review of her license. The web was unraveling fast. And I didn't feel joy. I felt steady, like the first breath after holding it too long. I lit a candle that night. Not for her. For me. For the girl who worked double shifts to buy Lisa her first backpack. For the woman who signed hospital forms alone after Cliff died. For the mother who swallowed disrespect for years, thinking silence meant love. And for the woman I was now, quiet, clear-eyed, and done being used. My house felt warmer again. I changed the locks that week. New keys. Fresh start. I even had the keypad reprogrammed so Lisa couldn't come by and punch in that old code I once gave her, just in case. She didn't try to come over. Not yet. But the voicemails kept coming. I'm not a criminal. You're ruining everything. You're my mother? Why would you do this to me? Each one sounded smaller. Each one reminded me of the woman I'd been. Always absorbing. Always forgiving. Always making excuses. But I wasn't her anymore. Now I was someone who picked up the phone and didn't answer, who read the texts and deleted them, who walked through her own front door without fear of finding her life stolen piece by piece. Ed said, I had the option to press charges. We didn't need it for the fraud case. The bank would pursue it on their own, but if I wanted to push for prosecution, we could. I asked him for time, because punishment wasn't my goal. Boundaries were. And for the first time, Lisa was running into them.